This is one that really is like a nostalgia bomb. This is nostalgia wrapped in a big, nice present, wrapped in a big bow, and I'm just opening this now, and the memories are flooding back to me. All those nostalgia, them '90s child memories that I had, and it's fun. It's fun, and I've been reading about this show today just to reabsorb some of the show in and just remember it again. And the show I want to talk about is Big Bad Beetleborgs. You know, Big Bad Beetleborgs, Big Bad Beetleborgs. That's the theme song. I know, I butchered it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, ladies and gents. Don't turn off the show yet. But yeah, Big Bad Beetleborgs. This was basically this was a show that came few years after the hype of Power Rangers. I know we had loads of these spin-offs after Power Rangers come in, and Beetleborgs was by the same production company, Saban, and very I think it was like by a lot of the same like producers, directors of the Power Rangers series. I don't know if it was similar where they used footage from like Super Sentai. I don't know if Beetleborgs did a similar thing. I imagine they probably did. But basically, let's talk about what the premise of what Big Bad Beetleborgs was if you've never seen that show before. Basically, Big Bad Beetleborgs was a show of three kids go into this haunted mansion. They get lured into going to this haunted mansion. And in this mansion, they had like all like the universal monsters. I don't think they could actually call them by the name. So like you'd have like Dracula. I don't think they could name them by the names as far as I'm aware. But you'd have like the Mummy, all them sort of ones you can think of. Frankenstein's monster, and they had this ghoul character who was very much like a Jay Leno slash Elvis kind of guy. This character, this ghoulish character that they released, and basically he granted them all one wish. These three kids who went into this haunted house, and the kids wish basically the kids then make a wish to become the comic book, like the favorite comic book. The favorite comic book is Big Bad Beetleborgs, and they choose to become the Big Bad Beetleborgs. So they choose to become actual comic book heroes. So it's like me getting a wish from a genie now and saying, I want to become Spider-Man or I want to become Batman. And that becomes true. They then become those characters. So the Big Bad Beetleborgs is a comic book. They make a wish to become the characters from the comic book. They show the comic book to Flabber, this character, and he makes a wish, and he grants them the wish, and he makes them Big Bad Beetleborgs. And I just love that concept straight off the back. I think it's a really cool, fresh concept. I think it's just super interesting. Like, it's taking a comic book, they become the characters from the comic book. I think it's really cool. Very much like the Power Rangers, they had like these Power Rangers like suits. The suits were really cool in Beetleborgs as well. They had like antennas, like they were actual like beetles. I think in the second season they had like updated suits as well. But it was really cool. They had like Zords, very similar to Power Rangers. So it basically, after you take away the whole like haunted house thing, it was very much Power Rangers. But the other twist to it as well was when he granted them the wish of becoming the comic book characters, the characters they liked in the comic book, the heroes of the comic book, the Big Bad Beetleborgs. This also brought the villains from a comic book to life as well. So then they had to battle the villains within the comic book in the real world. Then it got really interesting where they would visit the comic book shop and they'd find the original artist of the comic book, and he would then create more things that would help them, like more weapons and stuff like this to help them. And the stuff from what he would draw in the comics would then come alive for them. I just think it's a really cool concept. And I know they had the recent reboot a few years back of the Power Rangers. I feel like if they were going to build some sort of expanded sort of Saban Power Rangers universe at some point, it would be cool to see the Big Bad Beetleborgs in there as a live action movie. I think the premise is good. I do think it was very, very, very cheesy. Look back, Power Rangers was super cheesy as well. If you look back at Power Rangers now, it has aged badly. In my opinion, I think it's aged really badly. I think it's you have the memories of what it was, and then you look back and then you watch it, and it is very, very cheesy, very, very similar each episode, even though it is so fun to watch. But I think if you had an updated version and make it a bit more scary and, having the idea of going in a haunted mansion and meeting this ghoulish character, I think it would have to look completely different to the actual TV show and make it a bit more scary, a bit more, not realistic, but just less kiddie. I think if they do it like that, it would be better. It would work better. But I think having the same premise of having this comic book come to life and these kids choose the characters they want to be, I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think it would work really as well as like a like a Scott Pilgrim sort of thing. I can imagine that guy. Who was it? The guy he done Scott Pilgrim. He did Shaun of the Dead. I can't remember the guy's name. I think he would actually be the sort of guy who, if it was Edgar Wright, wasn't it? Edgar Wright. He would be a great director for Big Bad Beetleborgs. If you had the humour, what he puts into his movies, and this concept, I think it would work really well with someone like that in charge. Or like a James Gunn. I think they're the sort of directors who could really get into this idea and make something really interesting and really creative with this idea. Because it's not just a simple story, it's got that interesting story element attached to it. I think having a creator like that in there would work well, and it would really be a cool story. So I would love to see a Big Bad Beetleborgs movie, live action adaptation. I think it would be awesome. I think it would be super awesome to see.